Welcome to a deep dive tailored just for you, exploring the complex and often counterintuitive world of power.
We've got some really fascinating source material here, excerpts from a book that, well, it distills lessons on power, draws from history, philosophy.
Quite a stack of observations, isn't it, and
Mhm.
strategies. Sometimes they're really blunt, other times much more subtle.
Exactly. And our mission today really is to unpack these sources, pull out the most important bits of knowledge, and understand the principles they're presenting.
Right, drawing directly from the examples in the text you shared. Think of this as your shortcut, maybe, to getting informed on the mechanics of power as described in these pages.
Absolutely. We'll be looking at specific laws or principles they outline and really diving into the stories, the historical anecdotes, the fables they use to illustrate the points.
Okay, so get ready for some surprising insights, maybe a few aha moments. We're just exploring how power's been sought and maintained based purely on this material. Let's jump in. So let's start right at the beginning. How do the sources suggest you navigate relationships, especially, with people above and below you in a hierarchy?
Well, a core principle discussed, and the source puts this right up front, is about superiors. Law 1, never outshine the master.
Never outshine the master.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds simple, but what's the material really getting at? Is it just, like, making your boss look good?
It's actually deeper than that. The goal isn't just making them look good, it's about making them feel comfortably superior.
Comfortably superior. Okay.
Yeah. The source argues that showing off your own talents too much, that can backfire big time. It inspires fear, insecurity. They might see you as a threat.
So it's less about how good you are and more about managing their feelings, their ego.
Precisely, their psychological landscape.
Yeah.
The text gives some pretty stark examples.
Like Fouquet and Louis XIV, that story about the party.
Exactly. Fouquet throws this incredible party, probably thinking he's showing loyalty, showing off for the king. But the sheer scale of it just highlighted Fouquet's own wealth, his popularity. It totally overshadowed Louis, offended his vanity.
And led straight to Fouquet's downfall. Ouch.
Yeah, he made the king feel small. Another one, maybe even more chilling, is Cesar Borgia and Astor Manfredi. The source says Borgia felt insecure just because this young guy, Astor, was naturally charming, attractive. He outshone Borgia without even trying.
Just by being himself.
Just by being himself. His presence was a threat to Borgia's ego, and tragically that led to Astor's death. The material is blunt. A subject being superior to his prince isn't just stupid, it's, quote, fatal.
Wow. So it really boils down to managing the other person's insecurity. Though,
Yeah.
the source does mention a reversal, right?
Yeah.
If the superior is weak, a falling star.
Yes, it does note that. In very specific cases, if a superior is clearly on the way down, you might be able to discreetly hasten their fall by outshining them. But
Whoa.
it stresses this is really high stakes. You need incredibly careful judgment about their actual strength. Get it wrong, and, well...
All right, back to the Fouquet situation. Okay, so that's handling superiors. What about leveraging others? Law 7 is get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit.
Yeah, this one's framed purely around efficiency and consolidating power. The idea is simple. Use the wisdom, the knowledge, the actual legwork of other people to advance your own cause.
Saves you time, energy.
Exactly. And the source suggests it creates this godlike aura of efficiency and speed around you. Meanwhile, you're helpers. Forgotten. You're remembered.
It uses that example of politicians, right? Not writing their own speeches. Others do the work, they deliver it, take the credit.
A very relatable one. And the text suggests this kind of leveraging, using past insights, standing on others' shoulders. It's a form of power anyone can access. It even quotes Bismarck saying he preferred profiting from others' experience.
It's presented less as simple delegation, more like absorbing their capability to make yourself look better, faster.
That's a good way to put it. And related to using others, there's Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude.
Okay, this sounds cynical, but probably realistic according to this source material.
It's very explicit about the reasoning. People will likely ignore past favors if you remind them. Gratitude fades, obligations get resented.
So appeals to friendship or past debts don't work.
The source says generally no. To get help, you have to figure out what's in it for them. Find something in your request, your alliance, that benefits them, ideally, significantly.
And then they'll respond enthusiastically because they see something for themselves.
That's the argument. It aligns with that core idea of self-interest being the main lever. You need to shift your perspective, get inside their heads, see their needs, forget your own feelings about it, as the text says.
Like that art dealer Duveen with Andrew Mellon.
Perfect example. Duveen did his homework, found out exactly what Mellon liked before they met.
So when Mellon walked into the gallery,
Everything just happened to be exactly what Mellon wanted. Seemed like serendipity. Duveen locked him in as a client by appealing directly to his tastes, his self-interest, never by asking for favors.
so whether it's superiors, getting work done, asking for help, the material keeps hammering this strategic thinking, focusing on the other person's perspective, their motivations, assuming self-interest is king.
Absolutely. And that focus on understanding others, especially their internal landscape, it leads us right into how the sources describe shaping reality and perception, deception, appearances, psychology. These are huge themes.
And Law 14 dives right in. Pose as a friend, work as a spy.
Yeah, pretty direct. This is about gathering intel on rivals, potential obstacles. The source suggests using actual spies, sure, but also emphasizes spying yourself.
How? In just normal interactions.
Exactly, in social settings. Asking indirect questions, probing gently to find weaknesses, hidden intentions. The material notes, quite pointedly, no occasion that is not an opportunity for artful spying.
Appearing harmless while you're actually assessing them.
Right. And building on that, what's really interesting is how the text talks about hiding your own intention.
Okay, how? Be secretive.
No, that just makes people suspicious. It suggests doing the opposite, talking endlessly about false desires and goals.
Wait, talking more hides things. How does that work?
The logic, according to the source, is it makes you seem open, friendly, transparent. People are disarmed by apparent honesty.
Ah, so while you're going on about fake plans,
You're concealing your real ones. And maybe even sending rivals off on wild goose chases, chasing the wrong thing.
the source mentions Bismarck doing this, supporting peace publicly while planning for war.
Exactly. Threw everyone off. It also talks about false sincerity, like Iago tricking Othello by seeming so concerned. Or that con artist, Yellow Kid Weil, appearing totally sincere about his fake schemes.
People mistake sincerity for honesty, and they want to believe people are honest.
Precisely. So projecting sincere emotion, even if it's fake, works.
Speaking of disarming people, distraction. The sources highlight distraction as key to deception. An act of kindness, honesty, is often the most powerful form of distraction.
It's framed as a tactic, like giving before you take, linking back to ancient China. It softens people up, takes the sting out of a later request.
Or just creates a diversion while you do something else unnoticed.
Right, it stops them plotting revenge or resenting you if you just demanded something.
That fable about the crow hen dropping the gold chain in the snake's hole?
Perfect illustration. The king's men retrieve the chain and oops, they deal with the snake for the crow. Indirect, clever, uses distraction.
Okay, shifting slightly. Law 32. Play to people's fantasies.
This feels very much about mass psychology.
Yeah, definitely. The text's view is basically truth is often ugly, harsh. People don't like it. Revealing it bluntly leads to anger, disappointment.
So people prefer what? Romance? Fantasy?
According to the source, yes. So tapping into those mass fantasies, individual daydreams, that gives you immense power. People want a more appealing reality.
So avoid the truth unless you're ready for the disenchantment, as the source puts it.
Essentially, give them the story they want to believe.
Another psychological angle. Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew.
The thumbscrew, meaning their weakness.
Exactly. Everyone has one, the source insists. An insecurity, an uncontrollable emotion, a secret pleasure. It's the gap in the castle wall. Find it, and you have a thumbscrew you can turn to your advantage.
It explicitly says to seek out the dissatisfied, the unhappy, the insecure, because they're riddled with weaknesses.
Yes. Their neediness is the groove you can leverage, it says. Think of Count Lustig, the con man, targeting Mr. Lawler.
Right, he didn't use logic.
No, he went straight for Lawler's deep insecurity, his desperate desire for status, for access to old money. That specific vulnerability made Lawler fall for that absurd machine scam.
Okay, let's talk appearance. Law 34. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one.
This is a forceful argument from the source. How you carry yourself, the aura you project that determines how people treat you.
So acting regal, confident, like you're destined for greatness.
Makes you seem destined to wear a crown, as the text puts it. It sets you apart, above.
It points to people like Columbus, Beethoven, Disraeli,
Yeah.
suggesting that strong belief in your own greatness becomes a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes, because it shapes how others perceive you and react. What's interesting is the contrast the source draws.
Against what?
Against affecting a common man aura. It uses Louis Philippe, the banker king in France, as an example. He downplayed his status after the revolution.
And
The source argues people saw through it. He was easily toppled because he lacked regal dignity. His attempt to seem like everyone else failed because it lacked core presence. Compare that to FDR common touch, yes, but still an undeniable authority.
that idea of projecting an aura connects to Law 37. Create compelling spectacles.
Absolutely. Striking images, grand gestures, public performances, these create an aura of power. Why? Because people respond strongly to visuals, to emotion.
So staging spectacles dazzles people, distracts them from what you're really doing.
That's the suggestion. Think Cleopatra's entrance on her barge for Antony, or Caesar's public appearances, the purple robes, the wreaths, the gifts, prime examples.
The text says the visual is the easiest route to their hearts.
People are easily impressed by the superficial, the dramatic, according to this material, like those old mountebanks using spectacle to sell useless potions.
On a different note about presentation, Law 38. Think as you like, but behave like others.
The idea here is avoiding needless provocation, flaunting unconventional ideas, unorthodox ways. It just makes people suspicious.
They think you're seeking attention or looking down on them.
Right, and that leads to resistance, punishment. The source says it's safer to blend in externally, nurture the common touch, keep your real originality for tolerant friends.
So fake conformity on the outside.
Basically, the source points to people like Campanella defending Catholicism with arguments atheists later used. Or Bertolt Brecht charming that House committee with ambiguous answers and conforming behavior. Even the court jester talks endlessly, entertains, so no one suspects he might be smarter or more cynical than the king.
Okay, last one in this section on perception. Law 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect.
This is a fascinating psychological play. Mirroring your enemy's actions.
Why? What does that achieve?
Well, the source argues it stops them figuring out your strategy. You're not doing the expected countermove. Plus, it can mock and humiliate them, reflecting their own tactics back at them.
Which might make them overreact?
Exactly. Mirroring their psyche creates an illusion of shared values. Mirroring their actions teaches them a lesson, the source suggests.
Like that fable. The merchant and his friend. The friend lies about rats eating iron.
And the merchant mirrors the absurdity by claiming an owl stole the friend's child, reflecting the ridiculousness back.
Teaching him a lesson through reflection.
Right. The text talks about mirrors being disturbing, showing us as others see us. The shield of Perseus, reflecting Medusa's hideousness, that's the image used, reflecting the enemy's flaws back at them.
Okay, moving from perception to, well, direct conflict. Power often involves dealing with opponents head-on.
And the sources offer a range of strategies here, from total annihilation to actually using your enemies.
Let's start with a blunt one. Law 15. Crush your enemy totally.
Yeah, this is presented as fundamental, known by, quote, all great leaders since Moses, often learned the hard way.
The argument being,
A feared enemy must be completely crushed, leave even a spark. They can recover, seek revenge. You lose more by stopping halfway out of mercy than through total destruction. Body and spirit, the text says.
the story of Shang not crushing Liu Bang when he had the chance.
The classic negative example. Xiang had him cornered, chose mercy, wanted Liu to acknowledge him.
And Liu used the pause to escape.
Exactly. Escaped, regrouped, eventually defeated Chang totally. Mercy, in that context, cost Chang everything, according to the source.
Now contrast that with Law 22. Turn weakness into power by surrendering when weaker.
Seems like the complete opposite, doesn't it?
It does. How is surrender a path to power?
The source frames it strategically. Surrender when you know you can't win buys you time to recover. It can also irritate the conqueror, denies them the satisfaction of a clear victory. So it becomes a tool of power. You survive to fight another day, wait for their strength to fade.
So it's strategic retreat, not giving up, preserving potential.
Exactly. Now, related to handling opposition within a group, Law 42, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter.
Identifying the source of the trouble.
Yes. Discord, rebellion, often traced to one strong individual, the stirrer, the arrogant underling, the poisoner of goodwill.
And the solution.
Neutralize their influence decisively. Isolate them, banish them, strike the head. The source claims these types are often irredeemable. Negotiation is pointless.
The source material also talks about using enemies, which sounds counterintuitive. It says you're better off with declared opponents.
It's a fascinating perspective. The man of power welcomes conflict. Enemies keep you sharp, you can define yourself against them, enhance your reputation as a fighter. Conflict itself becomes training.
Like Mao using the fight against the Japanese to toughen up his army for the Civil War later.
Perfect example from the text. And it quotes Gratian, "The wise man profits more from his enemies than a fool from his friends," reframing enemies as potential assets.
Okay, last one here, Law 26. Keep your hands clean, often using scapegoats.
This is presented as pure reputation management. Made a mistake. Let someone else take the blame. Protects your image of perfection, efficiency.
The text uses Sister Borgia and Ramiro de Orio again. The Orio did the dirty work pacifying a region.
Made Cesar look good, but made herself hated. So Cesar publicly disowned de Orio's cruelty, had him executed, displayed the body.
And the people were stunned and satisfied, clearing Cesar's name.
That's the stark example, diverting blame. The source does caution, though. Don't pick a scapegoat who looks too weak, it might backfire. And notes that sacrificing a close associate, the fall of the favorite, is a common historical tactic. Protects the leader's image.
Okay, let's shift again. Cultivating presence, attention, momentum. Law 6. Court attention at all cost.
The argument here is simple. In a noisy world, you have to be visible. A magnet of attention. How? By being larger, more colorful, more mysterious than the crowd.
And the striking part is, the quality of attention doesn't matter, good or bad.
According to the source, no. Irrelevant. Controversy, adoration, attention itself is the main ingredient. Being ignored. That's the worst fate.
P.T. Barnum is the master here.
Yeah.
Welcoming bad reviews, even writing attacks on himself.
Exactly. Just to stay in the papers. Any headline was a good headline for Barnum.
But the source adds a reversal. Adapt as you rise. Don't wear people out.
Right. Mystery works early on, but don't let it become a reputation for deceit, like Mata Hari. Her constant fabrications made her suspect. The mystery needs to feel like a game.
Knowing when to escalate, when to pull back. Okay, Law 17 builds on this. Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability.
We like predictability, right? Humans crave it. Gives a sense of control. So, being deliberately unpredictable keeps others off balance. They waste energy trying to figure you out, wears them down psychologically. At the extreme, the source says, it can intimidate and terrorize.
Bobby Fischer's chess moves against Spassky. Unconventional plays, confusing everyone.
Perfect example. Left his opponent, observers, constantly guessing, created this unsettling aura of control because no one knew his next move.
Denies them the comfort of knowing what's coming. Okay, Law 20. Do not commit to anyone.
This sounds like stay independent, avoid alliances.
Precisely. Keep your options open. Maintain independence. It lets you play people off against each other, remain aloof. You become someone whose support has to be earned, competed for.
The sources mention Alcibiades, switching sides between Athens, Sparta, Persia, always uncommitted, always powerful.
Right, and Kissinger playing China against the Soviets. Even Picasso avoiding single dealers once he got famous.
Yeah, the competition drove up his prices. The text notes. Rush to support someone. You gain little respect. Stand back. Stay uncommitted. You're besieged with supplicants. Aloofness is perceived as power. People want what's hard to get.
Law 23. Concentrate your forces.
This is about using energy effectively. Don't spread yourself thin. Focus on your strongest point, like mining one rich vein deeper, not flitting between shallow ones. Intensity defeats extensity, the source emphasizes.
It also links this to finding a key patron for long-term support, but then contrasts it with relying only on one source, citing Borgia's fall when his father, the Pope, died.
Right. So concentrate your efforts where they're strongest, but in turbulent times, maybe intertwine yourself with multiple sources of power. Build a safety net. Context matters.
Law 40. Despise the free lunch.
The idea being anything offered for free is dangerous. A trick. Hidden obligation.
That's the source's take. It's rarely truly free. Comes with strings, a debt, or it's a setup to pay more later. So what has real worth is worth paying for.
That con artist, Yellow Kid Whale, is quoted again, saying he exploited people's desire to get something for nothing. His scams worked because greed blinded victims to the hidden costs.
Like the free real estate with huge registration fees.
Exactly. And the story of Kung Yi-soo, the premier who refused gifts of fish, even though he loved fish.
Why?
Because accepting would obligate him, could compromise him, cost him his job, and then he couldn't buy any fish. Shows the wisdom of avoiding freebies to maintain independence. The text also tells that story about the tea bowl. Overpaying gave it value, bargaining diminished it.
Okay, Law 43. Work on the hearts and minds of others.
This contrasts sharply with just using force. Coercion creates backlash, resentment. True power, the source argues, comes from persuasion.
Getting people to want to do what you want them to.
Yes. And that means understanding their psychology, tailoring your approach, influencing their desires.
Like the fable of the wind and the sun. Force fails. Gentle warmth succeeds in getting the traveler's coat off.
Exactly. And the source stresses, this requires energy and art. Expecting people to be charmed without effort, like the wind just blowing harder, that's disastrous for power. You got to put in the work.
Law 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once.
This taps into a basic human trait. We get the idea of change, but we're creatures of habit. Too much sudden innovation, it's traumatic, leads to revolt.
So if you're new in power or introducing something new,
Respect the old ways first. Make the change feel like a gentle improvement, a natural evolution, not a radical break.
Cromwell's idea for Henry VIII to break from Rome is used as an example of drastic change, though the king's own desire drove that one.
Right, but the general principle holds, don't shock the system too much, too fast.
Law 46. Never appeared too perfect. This feels counterintuitive again, after all that talk about projecting power.
It does. But the reasoning is about envy. Appearing too perfect, too successful, too effortless. It breeds envy, the silent enemy.
And envy creates secret enemies working against you.
That's the argument. So, to deflect it, occasionally show minor flaws, admit harmless vices, makes you seem more human, lets others feel a bit superior, disarms their envy.
Like that fable of the animals confessing sins. They attack the ass for a trivial sin after admitting bigger ones themselves.
Yeah, it shows how admitting minor flaws can protect you, while perceived perfection or major flaws invite attack. But there's also a reversal here, too.
Another one.
Yes. Sometimes, if you reach an unimpeachable position, you do the opposite. Display utmost disdain for enviers. Make your success obvious. They're living hell. Michelangelo using Bramante's envy to push himself harder is the example. So again, context and position are key.
Okay, finally, Law 47. Do not go past the mark.
This is a warning about success itself. In victory, arrogance, overconfidence, they can push you too far beyond your goal.
Making more enemies than you defeated.
Exactly. Or alienating allies. The principle. Set a goal, achieve it, then stop. Don't let success inflate your ego into overreach.
The Spartans, after defeating Athens, are the cautionary tale. Their rigid system couldn't adapt to governing. They went past their military mark.
Yes. They became entombed in their own success while the world moved on. And the modern example. The U.S. expedition against Pancho Villa.
Went past the mark.
The source argues yes. The huge military display made Villa more popular, failed to catch him, humiliated the U.S. effort, overreached what was achievable or wise. So as we've gone through all these laws, these tactics, it's really clear they hinge on a specific view of human nature presented in this material.
Yeah, one driven heavily by self-interest, very susceptible to appearances, emotions, insecurities.
Definitely. Self-interest is repeatedly called the main lever. Greed, that desire to get something for nothing, is shown as a key vulnerability exploited by manipulators.
And playing on emotions comes up again and again. Calculated kindness can disarm even a Capone, the text says. But insincerity, if spotted, turns warmth to hatred.
Right. And the power of the superficial is huge in this view. People respond emotionally to grand visuals, spectacles, Law 37. They often avoid unpleasant truths, Law 32, flocking to fantasy. And they're creatures of habit, resistant to sudden change, Law 45.
That idea of the thumbscrew, Law 33, really reinforces it. Everyone have a weakness, an insecurity, a need that can be found and potentially exploited.
And perception consistently outweighs reality. Acting like a king makes people treat you like one, Law 34. Appearing effortless hides work. Appearing flawed deflects envy, Law 46. It's all about understanding and strategically manipulating these psychological levers. And that's presented as the key to power in these sources.
We've really taken a deep dive into this material then. Looked at navigating hierarchies, deception, spectacle, handling enemies, cultivating attention, and this underlying view of human psychology the sources describe.
Yeah, it's clear these sources present a challenging view of human interaction. Appearances are paramount, self-interest is assumed to be key, and strategic thinking about others' weaknesses is framed as essential for power.
We've followed that thread through the history, the fables, the tactical advice, all drawn directly from the pages you provided for us to explore.
And maybe, as you reflect on these strategies, this view of human nature, consider this. If, as this source material suggests, thinking of Machiavelli, all these examples, if the pursuit of power often requires learning, quote, how not to be good, and understanding weaknesses like self-interest, insecurity, provides the tools for leverage, What does that perspective really reveal about the nature of power itself? And maybe, what's its true cost?
Until the next deep dive.